I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about probably maritime security and specifically the Bosphorus. I know every time you fly in and out of Istanbul, if you're transiting or stopping there, you're coming in to final approach, you just look at all the ships, cargo, and the containers that are backed up going in and through there, that very important part of the world. I think most estimates suggest it's about 6% of global trade transits through the Bosphorus. It's an economic conduit, obviously facilitating energy, agriculture, raw minerals, and the economic disruptions caused by the war in Ukraine impact truly the whole of the globe. It's kind of their Strait of Hormuz, pinch point certainly for the world. My question for everybody, I'd like each of you maybe to answer this, is how do we work with our allies to invest in maritime security and to ensure that Russia or other adversaries don't stifle navigation and trade? Dr. Starr, we'll start with you, but I'm going to ask the whole panel to give some thought to that question. Dr. Starr?
It's a worthy question. The reality is, at the moment, the Black Sea is closed because Russia has imposed, except for a very narrow corridor along the coast, the northern coast, in a sense, a no-sail zone. And that hasn't been broken. It's been cracked, but not broken. What is the need? How do you go about this? Rather than give you a formula, some slick answer, let me instead raise the question of how do you approach an answer? And I would suggest you don't do it by a bunch of bilateral deals, by a bunch of bilateral consultations. We don't have a Black Sea Council that we could work with. We are going singly. You know, in a sense, we divide and Russia conquers. What's needed is more regional approaches on everything. I've suggested expanding the Black Sea concept to include the Caucasus, to include Moldova, to include Ukraine, which isn't yet. I mean, it's not a member of NATO after all. Expand the group and deal with this as a group problem that needs a group solution, because country by country, you can't solve this Rubik's Cube.
Thank you for that insight.
Hence the need for a Black Sea Council.
Well, it's think about the Caucasus too. In terms of Georgia has
add it to them.
Oceanfront property there on the Black Sea. Absolutely, Ms. Sendak, your thoughts.
Thank you so much, and tagging along to Dr. Starr's comments, you know, it is really critical. We have seen Ukraine be so successful in the Black Sea in terms of fighting back against Russia's Black Sea fleet, down 30%, pushed back off of Crimea, which is a huge success. But exactly to your point, how do we open this up consistently to commerce and economics? This is why I think a great suggestion is broadening what the NATO allies on the Black Sea can do. I do believe NATO should be talking now about how to start opening up the Black Sea to non-Black Sea allies. I think that's a really important step in a series of discussions that NATO should be having now, of course, in light of Turkey and the Montreux Convention. But I would say the opportunities for Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey to come together, agree on a list of items to push forward in a leadership position at the alliance, and really come at this from a position of this is our neighborhood. We're going to take these things on, much like what we've seen in the Baltic Sea. I think what we've seen from our Baltic allies is the ability to speak with one voice on threat and speak with one voice about how they would like to see the security of their region look. And I think the opportunity is there for our NATO allies in the Black Sea to do the same. And that leadership should have the ripple effect that we might be seeking in terms of stability on the sea.
Ms. Sendak, you brought up Turkey, and I think when you look at the map, nobody has more square footage than Turkey in terms of frontage on the Black Sea. Thoughts on Turkey?
Yes. Well, you know, we have seen them pivot to a little bit more concentration in the Black Sea, which I think is a very positive step. And I see them having obviously a huge leadership role in the Black Sea. given the Bosphorus, given the Montreux Convention, letting people in and out and ships in and out, it's a critical, critical role. And I think the more that we can incorporate, I think Dr. Starr mentioned in his opening statement, the more we can incorporate Turkey's role in this in a leadership position with their other allies, I think is absolutely critical. They're mentioned frequently in the EU Black Sea strategy, knowing full well that their buy-in and leadership is absolutely critical to make any of this happen.
Thanks, Ms. Sendak. Mr. Boyce.
Oh, there's some activity already going on already. But at first, I should sort of hats off to the Ukrainian military for actually keeping the Black Sea sort of relatively, sort of at least part of it open. Because right now we have the Russian Black Sea Fleet pretty much bottled up in Novorossiysk and unable to operate even freely, even if it is able to put at risk a lot of ship traffic, maritime traffic in the body of water itself. But of the things that are, and so that I think the fact that there is some, there's still commerce going on is actually attributed in large part to them, as well as to our Turkish allies who've helped to keep that open. But how do you, there's a fair amount of, there's some activity going on right now. It's been going on now for a number of months with this sort of NATO mine measures group that exists between Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria that are trying to get rid of nobody knows how many mines are actually in the Black Sea, but they do threaten freedom of navigation because they make, first of all, they're a threat to shipping. They raise insurance rates. I mean, they make it much more risky to apply commercially. And so this effort, which is a great start, I think needs more attention because there are so many mines. I mean, usually people talk about 400. Sometimes people talk about in the thousands. Nobody quite knows, but they wash up on shores every so often, and the mine measures group finds them every so often. But I think that would actually be how can you not support that? That would be a very, very useful way of trying to keep the these trade routes open and to support freedom of navigation. Otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of some of it has to do with domain awareness because some of it also has to do with the pushing back on intrusions. I mean, for example, Russia has Russian ships have boarded commercial vessels in Bulgarian waters. And of course, this is really, I don't know if we would call it piracy, but it's essentially, this is not kosher. And it should be. I think in cases like this, with Russia sort of testing and probing and pushing and engaging in behavior which is illegal according to the laws, laws of maritime in the maritime domain. There needs to be a response to this. It can't just be sort of ignored. And because as long as NATO member states don't react or don't impose some costs on Russia for behavior like this that affects the freedom of navigation in a body of water that should be free and open, the Russia will continue to do it. And so this question of reciprocity or sort of pushing back in ways that demonstrate that this will not be. This is not acceptable. Will have a more effect, I think, on Russian behavior than other more diplomatic ways.
Before I turn it back to Ranking Murphy, Dr. Starr, I can just tell you've got something else you want to say. You were scribbling some notes here. Did you want to add any more? Because you led off on this round robin interview. Do you have something else you want to add to it?
Thank you very much.
I'm reading this. Read the witnesses here for a moment. It looks like you've got something else you want to say.
I thank you. I was thinking about comments you made, and I think we all agree there's no debate about the absolute important centrality of energy, oil and gas, and crucial minerals and so on. But that isn't, if we only do that, we won't get to where we want to get. And I think Senator Murphy has made this point. What do you do then? Well, look what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the many countries whose long-term fate is absolutely not clear at this point. We're, of course, Ukraine. We're also Moldova. Look at the situation there. Positive steps very recently. We'll see. Georgia, my goodness, what a complex mess that is at the moment. Armenia, Azerbaijan, well, they've recently taken very significant steps, but the issue isn't clear there either. And I'm not even going to dwell on all of Central Asia, which is a region that is of much greater importance to us than merely energy, and to the West than merely energy and resources. It's important because this is a new zone of independent and sovereign states that are doing remarkably well after shuffling around for a generation or so after the collapse of the USSR. Their post-colonial recovery has been remarkable, very impressive. Now, the question is, are we going to do the things that are needed to enable them to continue that kind of progress toward relatively open societies, relatively participatory, with normal business relations with an increasing number of American firms? Are we going to advocate that and do what's necessary to develop it further, or are we going to just sit on the back as observers and focus only on energy and resources? I think we've got to do both. And that is a key to the Black Sea, because by focusing on these impressive countries, Moldova, my goodness, look what they just have been through. Ukraine, there's no need to discuss their heroism. This is look how Romania has emerged as a regional leader. There are real developments, complex tendencies within Turkey today, but some very promising ones too. I think we have to keep in mind that not just the immediate concern over energy, but especially what is going to be the fate of these regions. And my assertion here, in answer to your needling me a little bit, which I appreciate, my assertion is that I think we can't do this on a country-by-country basis. We have to define a new region and institutionalize it in a way that makes sense to us.
Dr. Starr, thank you for those comments. Appreciate it. I completely agree with the geopolitical importance of that part of the map of the world as you just articulated.